Hello everyone and welcome to SuttonsDaze. Today we're going to chat a little bit about freezing dairy. It's a great way to amp up your food storage. It's a great way to save money and preserve some things that you may not go through fast enough before they go bad. Using our freezers to increase our food storage is a fairly regular thing that we all do. We store meat, we store vegetables, we store treats. There's any number of things that you can put in your freezer for use at a later date. And a common question is, can I freeze dairy? Yes, the simple answer is yes, but there's a caveat, so don't click away yet. We're going to go through some of the most common dairy items, and we're going to chat a little bit about what to do and what to expect when you pull them out. Let's get started. One of the first dairy items that I think a lot of people know about is butter. We freeze butter all the time. I normally buy in bulk. I normally buy our butter once a year. There's a really good sale that happens at one of our markets, not too well, it's very far away from here, but it's worth a trip to go up there and buy the butter at the discounted price. So when it went on sale this year, it's normally right around Easter time. The whole shutdown had just started, and I'm like, we're going to be there when they open the door. I am not missing out on stocking up a year's worth of butter, okay? Because we could get a pound of butter for $1.99. That's a really good price, and normally not something you see very often. It's a good quality 100% butter, and that's all that we use here. So being able to stock up on it for future use throughout the entire year is a really big thing, especially when it comes up on the holiday season, baking, all that other fun stuff. It's an ingredient that we use a lot of. So I wanted to get a couple cases of butter. There's 36 pounds of butter in a case. What am I going to do with this? Can't store it in the fridge, so we're going to put it in the freezer. Butter lasts beautifully in the freezer, absolutely beautifully. We have had butter in our freezer for over 2 years, and there has been nothing wrong with it when we pull it out. The biggest thing that you have to watch out for when you're freezing butter is, what are you putting in that same freezer? You want to make sure it's not something like bell peppers, because it's amazing how the butter will take on the bell pepper flavor. Not necessarily what you're looking for when you're trying to make cookies, you know what I mean? So you want to make sure that you're not putting anything that has, a lot of odor to it, like onions, bell peppers, garlic. Don't store those in the same freezer or on the same shelf. You can typically put them down a shelf or two, but I prefer just to keep them in a completely different freezer. But butter is very, very good to store. Cheese is another common question. Can I freeze cheese? And we've discussed this in previous videos, but the simple answer is yes, you can freeze your cheese. Hard cheeses are a better cheese to freeze, but regardless, it's going to come out a little more crumbly than how it went in. And so the texture is going to be a little bit different based on that, but the flavor is still point on, just like the day that you put it in the freezer. Cheeses should be stored in packages at a half a pound or less, because you want to make sure that it gets all the way through and everything freezes equally. And you can easily shred cheeses and put those in the freezer also. It's another way to do it. It makes it a little more convenient. You can stack them, use them however you want. But cheese is great in the freezer. Now, typically they say to use cheese within 4 months of freezing it. I've had cheese in my freezers for a year and had no bads. Nothing was different than if I put it in and took it out a month later. It was still frozen beautifully. It's still used exactly the same way that it would any other time that I freeze it. So take the time limit with a grain of salt. I don't know how much longer than a year. I've never tested it, but I know I've had cheese in our freezers for a year with no ill side effects. You do want to make sure that it's airtight as you can get it. Vacuum seal it if it's a possibility, because that prevents any kind of freezer burn happening on your cheese also. Freezer burn gets cheese too. It sure does. But cheese in your freezer is an excellent way to preserve it for a later date. Milk. A lot of people freeze milk. I know my mother froze milk because she couldn't go through a whole gallon, before it went bad. So she would take half of it out and put the other half in the freezer to have at a later date. When you're ready, you defrost it, you give it a good shake, because milk separates. The solids and the liquids separate in the milk, and other things when you freeze it, but it works out perfectly. If you want to freeze a gallon of milk, you're still going to want to pour out, I don't know, a bit, because it expands when it freezes. If you don't pour out that little bit, then you risk the possibility of rupturing the plastic that it's in. Milk jugs are not the strongest plastic in the world, so you really want to try to take that down probably a couple of inches, and pour it off, drink it, do whatever you do, and then take that and put it in the freezer, and that stores beautifully. Now, they say that frozen milk should be used within a month, but again, we've had it last longer with no ill side effects. So, but it's something that you kind of want to keep an eye on. If you freeze milk and have had it last longer, drop a comment in the comment section below and share your experience with freezing milk, because I know that's one of the most common ones that I get asked. Can you freeze it? Yes, you can. Yes, it's still good for drinking. Yes, it's still good for cooking. It works perfectly fine. It's a great alternative to wasting it and throwing it out. Sour cream. You can freeze sour cream, but it may be worth noting, okay, that once you defrost it, it's not going to be smooth, like sour cream is. May not be something that you want to throw onto your nachos, but you can take it and whip it up. So take that sour cream, whip it up with your hand beater or whatever, kind of mix it all back together again. It's still not going to be perfectly smooth, but it's pretty close and it's good enough. And it saves money. It's a great way. If you find a good sale, toss it in there, right? Sometimes you may find that it's a bit more acidic than what you're expecting, because that's part of the process when it freezes. But it works best if you plan to use it when you're cooking instead of just eating like on top of your nachos. Use it to cream up a soup or something like that. Then it works perfectly well. So sour cream can be frozen. You may not want to dip your chips in after. Give it a try. Buy one, stick it in the freezer, see how you like it after it's defrosted and what you can do to hook it up. And again, if you've done it and you've got any tips and tricks, love to hear about them in the comment section below. The next one is yogurt. Yogurt you can freeze. Yes, it actually freezes better than sour cream, probably because of the higher sugar content. It really helps preserve that flavor. The texture, again, might be a little off, but the flavor is going to be absolutely fantastic. And, have you ever had a yogurt popsicle? Oh, yes. Hello. So it's a great frozen treat in the warm days that are not here right now. So, instead of having it go bad, throw it in the freezer and treat it like ice cream. Good stuff. Cream cheese. Cream cheese can be used for so many different things. So when you can catch a really good sale, that happens around the holiday time. Can you freeze it? Can I stock up on it and freeze it? Yes, you can. There's a caveat to cream cheese though. Okay. When you buy the cream cheese, if it is the spreadable stuff, in the containers, take those containers, put them in a Ziploc bag and try to push out as much air as you can. It's an extra layer of protection. The bricks I've never had a problem with, as far as freezing, because they always have that sealed foil around them. But cream cheese is not going to come out the way that you are used to it. It's not going to come out and be the same way that it was when you put it in. They say, again, that it's good for like 3 months. I, again, say that I've had it in the freezer for up to a year. But it's best used for cooking. Now, I did have a conversation happen. I don't know if it was in the comments here or on the Facebook page, but there was a conversation happening about it, and they said that they whipped it up and it was good. So that might be an alternative too. If you freeze cream cheese and you have a way to bring it back to closer to the consistency that it was before you froze it, again, throw it in the comment section below. But what I find is that when I freeze cream cheese, I'm going to pull it out exclusively for cooking, because I really want my cream cheese smooth. Smooth is big for cream cheese. So if you're cooking with it though, nobody cares if it's smooth. So you can put it in the freezer for sure. Just don't plan on slathering it on a cracker unless somebody gives us a really good tip below. Processed cheese. Okay, so don't roll your eyes at me. But some people prefer to freeze their processed cheese. You can do it. I'm not sure that I see the point necessarily. To the best of my recollection, Velveeta type cheese is pretty shelf stable. So, I mean, not if it's 90 degrees out maybe, but it depends on your climate, I guess. but you can store it in the freezer. You can slice it into, I would not leave it in that brick. How's that? Okay. I would break that down into like 4 different big chunks, vacuum seal them, or put them in a Ziploc bag, really airtight, and then put those in the freezer. Again, I mean, I don't know how they figure this, because I know that it's happened, but they say 4 months. I have never frozen processed cheese. I'm sure that there's a really good reason to do it. I just have never done it. We actually don't eat a lot of it. It's very rare that it's ever here. Normally it's for some kind of cheese dip that the grandkids like, but, if you decide that you want to freeze your processed cheese, that is my suggestion. Break it up into 4 different segments, wrap those tightly, stick them in the freezer. They say 4 months. You let me know how long it lasts. I don't have a clue. Heavy whipping cream is second in line to one of the most important things to life, because it's what we use in our coffee, which is one of the most important things in our life. So heavy whipping cream. Yes, you can freeze it. You can absolutely freeze it. Here's what you're going to do. Just like milk, it's going to need to be transferred into a container that you can take a good inch out of, okay? Because it is going to expand just like milk does when you put it in the freezer. When you go to defrost it, you're going to want to whip it up a little bit, okay? Not a lot. You don't, you want to mix it up, because it's going to clump. The fats and the solid, the fats and the solids and the whatever will separate. And so you're going to want to mix it up a little bit so that it doesn't have that clumpiness, when you pour it in your coffee. But it's absolutely perfectly good to freeze. One thing to note is if you're looking to use it to whip up, I know for a treat, Phil and I would add, like we would add pudding mix or something to whipped up heavy whipping cream. It's a low carb thing. Anyway, so it will not whip up as nice as fresh heavy whipping cream will, but it will whip up, just not as, as you're used to. Okay. But totally good to freeze. Absolutely. Half and half. I have never had experience with freezing half and half. But this is what I'm told. I'm told that you can freeze half and half, especially if you're planning on using it for baking or something like that. Again, cooking, and not necessarily for your coffee, because it will separate. But if you whisk it or give it a really good shake, then you should be able to redistribute a lot of that butter fat and stuff and make it more palatable for your coffee. It might look like, have you ever been to a restaurant where you get the little creamers and you pour it in your coffee and you can see that it curdles? Okay. Same deal. It probably got frozen at some point, and so it's unappetizing, but it's still good. At least the half and half coming out of your freezer is still good. So it's definitely an option if you want to freeze your half and half. Eggs. That's not necessarily dairy. I know, it's kind of like a bonus. Okay, guys, it's a bonus freezer storage thing. So hang with me for a minute. Yes, you can freeze eggs. You can absolutely freeze eggs. A lot of people freeze eggs. If you don't go through a lot of eggs, I think it's a really great thing. If you are getting fresh eggs, if you have fresh eggs, if you have chickens, there's no need to freeze them unless you are getting such an obscene amount that there's no way that your family could possibly eat them in 3, 4, 5 months. Okay. So fresh eggs can sit on the counter. Don't wash them. There's a whole deal. Anyway, but for freezing purposes, I digress. For freezing purposes, this is what you want to do, okay? You want to crack those eggs. You want to put them into a bowl, and you want to gently stir them. You are trying to avoid getting air, how you would normally beat them up for an omelet. You don't want that air if you're going to freeze them, but you do want to mix them up. So you want to do that, and you can pour them into an ice cube tray. You can put them right directly into a Ziploc baggie, any number of things that you freeze things in. The recommendation, and I legitimately have no idea why, but they say to add a tablespoon of salt, that's a lot of salt, to a cup's worth of, mixed eggs. Theoretically, it helps prevent graininess. No. So, you can do this, you can freeze egg whites, you can freeze egg yolks. So if you're making like a meringue, save those yolks, put them in the freezer, not a problem. I don't necessarily agree with the salt theory. I just don't. But when you go to defrost the eggs, you're going to want to beat them up fairly well. You know, just then you take your mixer out and beat them up and get some air into them. Otherwise, they freeze great. I mean, they're really an awesome thing if you, you know, make a lot of omelets or something like that, or you use it for baking. Measure them out, figure out how much there is in a Ziploc baggie or on an ice cube tray, and you're good to go. You've got eggs reserved in your freezer for food storage. It's fantastic. These are items that most all of us use, okay? So they're things that we can pick up. Definitely, you know, with the holidays coming up, hopefully there will be sales that you can stock up on. And if you can right now, and you can catch them at a decent price, now's a really good time to stock up on them also, because they're talking about food shortages and they're talking about inflation in prices. And while I don't think milk is going to go up extremely in price, I do believe that a lot of people have said that they've seen that cheese prices are definitely increasing. And remember when the first wave of this hit, egg prices skyrocketed like in a crazy manner. I was never so thankful to have chickens in my life. So you want to try to hedge your bets against any of those things that might be coming up. Have what you need in your freezer available and ready for you when you want it. I hope this was helpful. Sorry about the dogs. And remember, if you like what we do here, please hit that like, subscribe, and share. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, please be safe.